What is the impact of AI on startups or organizations in general? You're watching Microsoft Startup AI School, a Microsoft Reactor series of exciting and informative sessions where we introduce you to the basics of Gen AI and show how you can use AI to enhance your creativity, productivity, and efficiency. So, hi everyone, I'm Suzanne, a program manager with Microsoft Reactor and your host for the Microsoft Startup AI series. So this is the second of our series, and I'm super grateful to have you join us from all around the world. So if you have missed our previous episode on AI tools and trends, you can find it on demand now. So I'm just going to drop the link here. Right. So today's session is all about Microsoft Copilot from ideation, development to growing and scaling. Wow, I mean, I've said this several times, but when I first attended Marcus's demo, I was totally mind blown by what Copilot could do. And honestly, I wasn't the only one, there. Many of the workshop attendees had very good feedback. So today, I'm very honored to have Marcus join us at the Microsoft Startup AI School. So Marcus is a data and AI tech specialist at Microsoft Singapore, where he works closely with the public safety, defense, and intelligence customers. So he enables customers to adopt to emerging technologies such as Gen AI, Intelligent Edge, to drive digital transformation. So Marcus has a wealth of experience in cloud and AI. So prior to his role, Marcus held several positions at Microsoft, including being a cloud solution architect, where he led global account customers in Germany. So with the Microsoft Singapore team, he has also driven several nationwide cloud transformation projects, such as the government commercial cloud in alignment with Singapore Smart Nation initiatives. So, well, let's have Marcus join us right away. So, ta-da! Yay! Hello, Marcus.
Hi, Suzanne.
Right. I'm super happy to have you join us today. So thank you. You know how many times I've said about enjoying the workshop that you have done for our friends in the sports industry previously. And I strongly believe such great stuff should be shared with the community today. Yeah. So no pressure. Yeah, no pressure to impress today, but we know that you have personally developed an AI chatbot. Can you share more about it and what inspired you to develop it?
Yeah, so it was like during my uni days where I need to catch a shuttle bus, and I study in NTU, and the campus is huge, and shuttle bus is very, very important. So that's where when I plan out my schedule, this is where I need to rush from point A to point B, and that's why I was like thinking, hey, instead of like every time logging to the web page and try to find all these things, why not I just talk to a virtual agent that knows everything. So that's where I dig a little bit on the websites, the APIs, all these things, and voila, and then I managed to create that, and that's where I released it for my fellow mates to consume as well. Well, I mean, it was a good response, and we actually crashed on the second day because we exceed the free tier, and this is where I'm being forced to make it into like a paid tier. But yeah, that's how I get inspired to build that.
Right, it's actually very inspiring, to use AI to solve like world problems. I'm sure your solution can be adaptable like to a lot of other places as well. So very inspiring. And today, along with Marcus, I'm also very grateful to have Vincent joining us in this session. So like Marcus, Vincent also never fails to inspire me. So I'm gonna have Vincent up on the screen. Hello, Vincent.
Hi, Suzanne. Hi, Marcus.
Right. So let me just introduce a bit about Vincent, even though he could be a familiar face to many. Not only has he appeared in a number of Let's Get Technical shows, Vincent is also a Microsoft technical trainer focusing on motivating and engaging skilling learners on Azure cloud services. So he enjoys skilling on most innovative technologies relating to the cloud computing. So Vincent is also a Microsoft Cloud Platform evangelist. His favorite tagline is "Get inspired, make great things happen." So I can attest to it. So whenever we are in meetings, right? So I'm not sure whether you hear from this from Vincent Marcus. He would say something like, "Let's do it. Let's make great things happen." So with all the energy, it just rubs off onto you. So yeah. So thank you for joining us today, Vincent.
Yeah, it's definitely my pleasure to be here. All right. Yeah.
Before we start, I'm just going to quickly take this chance to remind everyone on the code of conduct, for everyone to stay respectful in your comments in our session today. Feel free to drop your questions at any time, and we'll address it during Q&A. So without much further ado, we're gonna just have both of y'all take the session away. Yeah. Have fun.
Hey, Marcus, really good to see you today, right here in this show. So, generative AI is such a huge topic, right? So, I think for the past 1 or 2 years, I've been using ChatGPT, right, and Bing Copilot to generate ideas and write articles for me and improve my productivity for sure. No doubt for that, right? But what else can it do?
Well, Vincent, I hope your boss did not find out. Just kidding. Yeah, I think generative AI is just there's a huge potential. We are just at the tips of the icebergs, right? Besides creating a documents or all these things, right? There are a lot more things that we can do, right? Probably I can just briefly summarize at least for the past 1.5 years what I have learned from engaging the customer, right? So besides the content generation that you mentioned earlier on, we also see a huge adoption on doing code generation, right? A developer like myself, this is where I find it a game changer. Things like GitHub Copilot is something that I will not so-called forget like every day, because that's where I can just type in, the things that I want, and it will generate the code for me. Maybe I'll share a quick tips with you. When I do a meeting notes, sometimes I use a GitHub Copilot as well, because it will generate the documentation for me. So you see, that's where you get very powerful, right? Of course, another use cases would be doing semantic search. Like, you might be asking, what's the difference between like semantic search and whatever search that we have currently, right? So the current search is really keyword based. Think about an experience when you search a document in SharePoint. Usually, you key in the word you want. It will have list down of list of documents or websites or whatever, and then you need to click one by one, go through read to identify is this something that you want, right? Semantic search actually make it much easier, where it actually understand exactly what you want, and then revert to you on the sentence that you need, right? So instead of you reading the document, you get the AI read the document for you and then give you the result. So that's where semantic search will then become a very, I would say, interesting use cases on using generative AI as well. And of course, last but not least, right, doing a summarization, right? So we are consuming so much information every day, right? What if we get someone like an AI to summarize for us? So again, that's a very common use cases, when I engage customers. So you might be, looking at all these different, Gen AI experiences, at least from Microsoft standpoint. Just like you mentioned, you're using, some of these Copilot, and the latest one would be on Microsoft 365 Copilot, and there's a Windows Copilot as well. This is where when we create a slide, this is where having an AI to create a slide for you, it takes all those burden away. We just need to focus on content, right? Let the AI to do the rest, right? Obviously, we don't tell our boss, so that we can do our job faster. All right.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Now, Vincent, I hope that give you a quick overview, right, on what Gen AI can do for you, and where does it stays. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is really interesting. I never thought of those use cases, just generating articles and so on. All right. So, and looks like it's not just a productivity tool. So, yeah, for all of the viewer out there, if you have any of the use cases that you're using, right, please feel free to put it onto the chat. We are looking at it. All right. So, Marcus, I have some idea in mind. I'm teaching my niece about maths, and I wish to have an AI as companion tool. How can I get started? Any tips and
Aha.
tricks from you?
All right, I know math is a nightmare for a lot of people, right? So what if having an AI that understand the question and solve for you, right? Now, before I
Wow.
go to that, right, probably I want to share a little bit on how do we construct a so-called Gen AI application, right? While it may looks magical, and sometimes people think it's a magic wand, wink, and then you have the things, right? Actually, it's not that complex, but it's also not that straightforward. Probably I can walk through a little bit. A very fundamental a concept within a Gen AI application is what we call prompt engineering. So this is where you provide input. The Gen AI, or in this case, the large language model, will take in the instruction that you give to the model, and then it will generate the output for you. So as you can see in this case, right, the quality of the output really depends on your input, right? So I'll just show some example over here, right? Let's say we are trying to find an idea to get a tagline for ice cream shop. So obviously I can just put in my prompt, hey, write a tagline for ice cream shop. It will then, generate this example, right? We serve a smiles with every scoop, right? Or even, if let's say we are looking at generating images, right? So again, this is just an example, a close-up bear in a forest, and this is the image itself, right? So you can see that the responses really depends on your input. So that's where you may heard of this term called prompt engineering, right? It sounds very complicated, but in actual fact, it's an art for us to use a natural language processing, right? Basically, we no longer use C#, Python, or whatever to talk to the AI model. We actually use the most natural language that we are using. That example over here, we are using our English to be able to communicate with the AI model over there, right? So that's where prompt engineering come into picture. So in your case, for example, you want to build a AI that teach your niece about math, right? Again, this is where we would then need to think about, okay, what instruction I want to give to that AI model so that it can solve the math problem for you, right? So probably I'll just do a 101 first. At least you can understand, okay, what does it mean by prompt engineering? Is it something that very complicated, right? So in general, we'll split into maybe two parts, right? There will be a meta prompt, and then there will be the actual prompt. You can think of meta prompt is like the background information, right? So if I use the same example again on creating the ice cream shop tagline, right? So this is where I can give more instruction or more background info, right, for this AI model. I can tell the AI model that, hey, you are a conversational agent for this company called Phoenix, right? And then your capabilities, right? You need to be informational and logical, right? And then you need, when you generate the responses, it should be free of harm or non-controversial, right? So that will be the background info that you give to the AI model. When you provide a prompt, you see, if I give the same prompt, it will give a different result based on the meta prompt as well as the prompt that I provided. So this is where we will be able to refine the output of the large language model itself. Okay. Before I move on to showing you the actual thing, probably there's another important concept I want to call out first, right? When we deal with the generative AI application, behind the scenes, it actually deal with a lot of probability, right? It's nothing but math behind the scenes, right? So there will be two important concepts that we need to consider. One is what we call token. You can think of token is the input, the number of words that we use, right? And then obviously the probability. So behind the scenes, Gen AI is based on probability, try to predict the next word based on your input. So for example, you say that horses are my favorite, and then the model may predict, do you want to say the next word as animal or animals or just exclamation mark, right? So this is where we will then have a concept of what we call temperature. Basically, it's the randomness of the model. So if you look in the first screenshot, right, if the temperature is 0, you're pretty sure that the outcome is the same. But if I move on to temperature is 1, which is like super random, you will then see that the output will be quite different, right? So that's where, depending on your use cases, you may want to think through how you want to put in this parameter, whether you want to be very deterministic or you want to be random, right? So for example, let's say you want to create document, generate ideas. This is where probably you want to make it more random. All right. So I hope that gives you a little bit of understanding on how Gen AI application works. So let's see how we can solve your problem.
Yeah, now I see how these magics happen, right? Wow, that's mind blown. So can you show me how can I get started right now? Yeah.
Alrighty. Let me switch my screen. All right. So I'm moving into my browser now. So I'll use this example of using Azure OpenAI, right? OpenAI is a company that we collaborated with. They are creator of ChatGPT. So this is where we are working with them to provide what we call Azure OpenAI. And what I'm showing over here is what we call Azure OpenAI Studio. So this is the place where we can, get started easily to start our, Gen AI application development. So probably I want to pick off, the example that you called up just now, right? And you want to create an AI, to solve the math problem. So
Yeah.
perhaps I'll start with the so-called chat over here first. this is where you'll be able to see that I have a chat playground for me to, do testing or all these things to come up with the idea. So just to orientate yourself, earlier on I mentioned about prompt engineering, all these things. You will notice that this is where we put the system messages over here. And then over here, this is where the users will interact with. And then at the so-called parameter side, this is where you will then so-called fine-tune, right, based on your use cases over here. All right. So let's get started off. The first one, right? Maybe I'll just use the magic of copy paste, right? I'll just copy from my notes are over here, but before I run it, I just want to show you, right? So this is the system message that I gave Azure OpenAI. So in this case, I want you to act as a math expert, specializing in algebra, geometry, and calculus. Explain the steps in detail, then tell the user the final answer, right? So this is basically the instruction I gave so that it would then understand what exactly this AI engine needs to work, right? Now, that's basically what we need to do, to be honest, right? We just put in the system message. Maybe let's try it out, right? So Vincent, do you think you're good in math?
No, I'm not. Yeah, so let you help us, right? Yeah.
Wow, maybe I'll try a first example over here, right? What is the sum of the first 10 positive integers, right? Well, sounds complicated, but in this case, maybe let's see whether it will generate for you. Aha. Well, I think it might be faster than your calculator.
Wow.
So
The sum of the first 10 positive integer is 55. Wow. That's really fast.
yeah, as you can see, imagine your niece will be, talking to a chatbot rather than yourself, right? Right.
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe I will try a little more complicated scenario because I thought, okay, maybe this example is easy, right? Some people will think, okay, this is easy. Maybe I try something more complicated, right? Again, I will try this one, right? Before I send out, I just want to let you to read through, right? The math questions over here. Basically, it's about the eggs. You consume how many eggs, and then you sell the remaining to the market, right? So, for those who deal with math, this is a common scenario, right? But again, let's see, right? If I send this to OpenAI, you will see that, hey, it breaks down the problem step by step, which is what I instruct the GenAI application to do for me. And then it will do the calculation for me, right? Isn't that, wonderful? You just need to give an instruction and
Yeah.
that's about it. All right. Now, I hope, Vincent, that's something that maybe you can use, you can do over the weekend. But, it doesn't stop here, right? Right now, we deal with the chat or all these things, right? More importantly, we also want to think about, hey, how do user access this one, right? I have all these things, but, I don't want the user to look at all these things, to change all these things. So one of the best thing I like about Azure OpenAI Studio is that it gives me the option to deploy to application directly. So on top over here, you will see that deploy to a new web app, right? I can just, key in the information that I need and voila, my application will be up and running. All right. So, for the time being, I'm not going to deploy, but I will just test it out, using one of the application that I deployed yesterday, but basically having the same thing. So this is how it looks like when you do the deployment, right? And if I place in the same questions, right, it will, give me the answer as well, right? So that's how easy it is for you to, get started to build an application fully functional, share with your users to consume, all right? Now, before that, right, before I move on, right, so far we only deal with text itself, right? There are scenarios that we also deal with other components. So, for example, we deal with images, right? How does a Gen AI come into picture on having on this multimedia, right? So before we kickstart this live streaming, this is where I was like, hey, you know what? Let's do something fun. So I'm going back to the OpenAI Studio again. I'm using another API called DALL-E. DALL-E is an API that actually do image generation. So for this live streaming, just now you have the host Suzanne and then both Vincent and myself. So I thought, okay, you know what? Maybe we should generate an image, right? So this is what I provided as a prompt. 3-person doing live stream for Microsoft Reactor. two guy and one cute lady, and then I put a cartoon style, right? You will see that, this would be how the images will look like. So, for those who are, squeezing your head that saying that your art is not good, you don't know how to design stuff, well, DALL-E might be something that, you can consider, right? So this is where you see we convert from text to images, right? Now, just one last thing, right? Before we move on, you have seen text to text, text to images, right? How about the other way around, right? Think about your experience when you use a chatbot or when you use instant messages with your friend. Definitely, you are not just using text itself. Sometimes we will use images, videos, etc. Right? What if, right? What if the AI model can understand that? Doesn't it sound so wonderful, right? So I'll show you one example, right? I'll just go back to the playground over here, back to the playground that we have. Maybe I will want to change the system message over here, right? This is where I change it to something else. Maybe I'll just, instruct the AI model to say that, hey, I want you to act as an assistant that understand visual data, in this case, the images, right? You will list down the quantity of objects in bullet point, right? If nothing is detected, crack a joke, right? Just for this demo purposes, right? So let me update, this application and clear the chat, right? And then we can see how it looks like. So you will notice that over here, I have enabled a vision. That's where we're able to, let the AI to see the world that we stay in, right? So I'll just upload an image. Let's see. Maybe I'll try a complicated one, right? Let's see these images. Okay. Well, I think this is a simple image. Count for me. Right. Basically, I took this in our office, right, with a bananas and a can over here, right? Usually, you see, okay, that's in like less than 5 seconds. It gives me the answer: 3 bananas and 2 can, right? Usually, for those who deal with computer vision project before, what you need to do, you will need to take a lot of photos. You need to do bounding box. You need to do those very advanced Python script to do your deep learning training or whatsoever. Well, over here, I basically just give a system message, and then that's about it, right? Think about the use cases. If let's say today I'm a store operator, right? I want to do object counting. I will just put in, and I'm actually good to go, right? Now, just one last thing, right? Remember, I have one instruction to say that if nothing is detected, crack a joke, right? So let's see. I'll just upload these images that has nothing, right? Count this, right? So these images got like nothing. So this is where I was asking the AI to say that, hey, if you don't see, anything, crack a joke. So I'm just trying to read the joke over here. Why don't you ever tell secret on a farm? Because potatoes has eyes, a corn has ears, and a bean stalk. Okay. Okay. Yeah, you see that, this is how you give the the instruction, right, towards the Gen AI application. So I hope that gave you a glimpse on how you can get started on creating your application itself.
Yeah, definitely. This is great. I'm inspired, definitely, right? So I'm ready to deploy. So it's just, I always have the questions, right? People ask me, how do I make my solution production ready? So is this solution production ready?
Well, just now you saw how I deploy into the web app, right? That might work for straightforward use cases, right? But in general, if we look into, whether it's enterprises or even in a startup space, we are trying to address a complex issue, right? This is where we may want to think about how we want to build our application. Perhaps I can move back to the slide just to, show you in general, how do we think about, the Gen AI application itself. So let me switch back to my presentation. All right. So now, so when we think about the Gen AI use cases, right, we will then look into 2 axes: the value as well as the complexity, right? So if you look into this axis over here, a lot of the demo that I showed just now actually deal with summarization and Q&A. right? I ask a question, the Gen AI give me the responses, right? But along the way, if you look into the value chain, we are looking at data-driven decision. We are also looking at personalization, and ultimately we're also looking at automation, right? Is there any so-called workflow that's repetitive but needs certain human intelligence to look through it, to process it for the next step. So obviously in this case the complexity will start to grow, right? Think about the system message that I gave just now, right? It might only address a very specific scenario, but when we look into the automation itself, right, we are dealing with a totally different depth of the complexity in this case. So this is where build your own Copilot concept is something that Microsoft foresee how the future application will look like, right? You have your math Copilot, for example, what we built just now. Perhaps you can have your own automation or Copilot, etc. So I'm just want to quote this from our CTO, right, on looking at how we see the Copilot, right? Basically, we do expect that this will become an expectation from all the software developers on the software understanding what exactly that we intend to do, right? So it actually changed the way we interact with software. Now, double click onto it, right? When I talk about Copilot, you might be wondering, hey, Copilot, is it just the system message that I sent just now, right? If I double click over here, right, this is just a high level on looking at when we think about the Copilot framework, more for a production ready kind of an application. What you have seen just now is on the foundational model, right? This is where we also have another layer of putting your data, right? Applications are data, putting the AI infrastructure that serve as a foundation, and then you have AI orchestration tools like the AI Studio that I showed you just now, or even the applications, right? On top of that to serve as the so-called interfaces to your user itself. So this is a high level on how we see a Copilot is being built, and this is a quick view on the framework itself. So from Microsoft standpoint, right, this is where I enjoy my work because I can deal with all these different AI stuff, right? So while I just briefly show you Azure OpenAI, there are a lot more things that we can think about to integrate into our application itself, right? For example, integrating vision, which I showed you just now, or it could be integrating with speech, right? Think about enabling an experience like Siri or Google Home or Alexa, but this time with your own spin of intelligence, right? Or maybe we are looking at doing some of the retrieval augmented generation, which is like augmenting the Gen AI with your own data, right? Or even right towards a final destination where we think about having the responsible AI component using the Azure machine learning over here, right? I'm not going to dive into this one because this will take me 3 days to go through, but I just want to have a glimpse of why Azure will be the right place for you to build all these applications. All right. So maybe Vincent, you know what? Maybe we use one example to illustrate the complexer scenario, right? So this is in fact an idea that I thought of a few months back when I was planning planning my trip, right, to a particular location. So as I thinking, hey, instead of me having to read through all the different things, can I get Copilot to so-called read the news for me and then help me to categorize the risk level, right? You will see that okay, in this case, I'm dealing with two different instruction, right? One is summarization, one is risk categorization, right? If you think about just now the system message that I show you, it may not work, right? So maybe, right, let's see how we can address this kind of a complex workflow using Gen AI. So I'm going to switch my screen again.
Wow, that's a lot right there. Wow, I've been learning.
It's exciting stuff, right? So now I'm going back to my browser again, right? So let's try to see how we can deal with the scenario that I addressed. Maybe if I break down that that problem statement, right, I actually need to deal with three things. The first thing is that I need to find a way to get a real-time information. I don't want to summarize the news that's like 6 months old, right? That's challenge number one. Challenge number two is that based on the news I get, I need to do summarization, right? And then the third one, based on the summary, I want to categorize the risk level over here. So let's see how we can do that. In this case, using Azure machine learning, which I showed you just now, right? So in Azure machine learning, there is a capability called prompt flow, right? This is where we're able to construct a complex large language or model application, right? Now, you know what, Vincent? Let's take a challenge, right? We create the application in live. All right. Now, let's see how we can do that. So I will start with establishing a connection first, right? So I establish a connection with Azure OpenAI. I also establish a connection to Bing News over here because again, I want to get the latest information, right? Now, so let's start with creating a new flow, right? So you will see that there are different options over here, different template for us to consume. Maybe I'll start with the standard flow, right? I would just say Marcus Travel Copilot, right? I wish that this one will be something that everyone will find this useful, right? Now, so I'll start with this one, right? Marcus Travel Copilot. Now you will see that this is like a so-called empty screen for me. So right now it's like trying to load the template for me. Maybe I don't need this one. I don't need this one as well, right? I just need the empty one. So I'll start with making the input as destination, right? So I think the most hot topic in the town is Taylor Swift concert. I don't know whether you attended or not. So maybe I'll put the destination as a Singapore. Let's say I'm going to plan for a trip to Singapore, right? Now, let's see how we want to do that, right? First thing first, I need to get the news, the latest news over there, right? So that's where perhaps I can start with adding a Python node, right? Maybe I just call Python. I'll give it a name, Python news. So that's where I added in. Again, I will use the magic of copy paste, right? Over here. But as you can see, it's not something complex. Effectively, I'm just putting a REST API call to say that, hey, is it safe to travel to, this destination, right? So that's where I will validate this one, the connection that I established just now, and then the destination will be the input over here, right? So you will start to see that, I start to address my question number one, getting the real-time information, right? Then secondly, I will need to get the GenAI to summarize the news for me. So what I can do, maybe I'll construct a prompt. I just call this a prompt summary. All right, going to add this as a note. And then again, I'm going to use the magic of a copy paste, right? Put it now over here. So again, this is my instruction, right, to my AI. I'm just saying, hey, remove duplication if the content is similar, right? Respond in bullet point, and then give me the source with a URL with a maximum 3-pointer, and then highlight, the critical travel risk. So that's the instruction that I give. Then likewise, the news would then be the output from the Python, right? Now, then this is where I will then ask my LLM. In this case, I'm going to use OpenAI to summarize for me. So I will just use Azure OpenAI. I'll use a chat API. I'll use a 3.5. I think that's good enough, right? And then maybe I will then just replace this one, right? You are a business travel assistant. You summarize blah blah blah, and then I will give you the input over here, right? So again, the input will then be the prompt summary over here. All right. So you can see that first I construct the prompt, then I created a LLM, right? A module that I instruct the AI to actually summarize the news for me, right? But I think this is not enough because besides the summarization, I also want the AI to actually categorize the risks are for me, right? So maybe I will construct another prompt, right? I just call it a prompt risk level, right? So again, I'm going to use the magic of, copy paste. Tell me what's the risk, for the summary below, and I get the summary from, the output from this LLM over here. All right. And then lastly, I will then get the OpenAI. In this case, I just call LLM evaluate risk, right? So you will see that, I can have multiple AI doing different things to me altogether. So in this case, I would again use the connections using chat. I'm going to use a 3.5 as well. And then I will use the magic of a copy paste over here, right? So you will see that, asking or rather the instruction I gave, right, to the AI is that, hey, you are a risk classifier assistant. These are the 3 different risk level, right? Based on high risk, medium risk, low risk, you only respond the risk level, right? So again, this is the instruction I gave to the AI itself, right? So you can start to see, right, we are, putting different so-called instruction for different agent or different AI to process data for us, all right? Then now, lastly, we have all these things. Now we want to gather the the output, right? So if I go to the output, maybe I want to name the output as summary, or maybe I call it summary, and this summary would then be captured from LM summary, right? As you can see, I can have a drop down over here, and then maybe I have another one called risk level, right? So maybe this one would be the LM evaluate risk, right? So I would then have the output captured from 2 different LLM, or in this case, the OpenAI together, right? So let's save this one. All right, and let's run, right? Well, I mean, we are doing this in live. I don't know whether we will have any error, but let's see, right? Just to show that, that's how we actually, fine tune the generative AI application, right, in real time. So as you can see, it's like, spinning all these things, going through the different instructions that I gave. Oh, okay, it's completed. Maybe let's view the output over here. Okay, so you see that, just now I give an input of Singapore. It gives me a summary of the news. Blah blah blah. Wow. Okay, this person fly to Singapore to see Taylor Swift. Okay, sounds a good rumor. You will see a lot of Taylor Swift stuff because of the, concert over here, right? But you can see that, it give a summary, and it give the so-called source of the news as well, right? And of course, it also give me the risk level, right? Based on the summary over here, the risk level is actually, low risk, right, over here. All right. So you can see that, that's how we deal with the so-called complex kind of Gen AI application, right? Now, the last step, we are happy with all these things, right? This is where we want to consume, right? We want to bake this into our application, right? Again, this is another favorite part that I like in a machine learning studio, because you can see over here, there is a deploy endpoint. All I need to do is select deploy. I just call Marcus Travel Copilot. I don't know. I can, select the instance that I want, just to save cost. I'll just put it like, one instance. And then that's about it. I will just be able to create a, REST API endpoint for my application to consume, right? So while this is deploying, I'll just go into the endpoint, just to show you over here. So you will see that I have deployed one, previously. It's called endpoint risk demo. So this is where if I click on the test over here, I can test from here directly, or I can then, include into my application, right? So it will have the API key for me, you have the API endpoint for me. I will just need to include, all these things into my application itself, right? So now you see a little bit on, we shift from the OpenAI Studio to the machine learning using a prompt flow to solve a little bit more complicated scenario using a generative AI.
Wow, this really takes the generative AI to the next level. This is super, super cool. And I can do more complex scenario, right? So just a questions. So another questions are sorry for so many questions with this. All right. So with this, right, I can add new features easily. So any best practices like DevOps or ML Ops?
Wow, okay. Sounds like you have been doing a lot of development, huh? Asking about DevOps, right? Now, I think you hit the right spot over here, right? Because if you think about what I have done, for the past 10 minutes, while I managed to create my own read travel slash risk Copilot, for myself, right? If I want to add new feature, right, what I have to do is I have to come in, make changes, right? And then, I cannot track, which one is the latest, which one is the old, which version is the best, right? So this is one of the issue, right, when we are developing the LLM application, right? Now, actually, you know what? Besides this, update or this thing, there are way more challenge that we need to address if we want to make our LM application ready. So maybe let me give you, double click one more level on the complexity of building an LM application, right? So I will move back to my slide again. All right. So now, some of the challenges, that we need to think through when we are building the large language model application or GenAI application in general, right? Just now you have seen, wow, I can make a GenAI demo in 5 minutes. You have seen that, the math assistant, I put in, save, deploy, I'm good to go, right? You see tons of tutorial, right, in YouTube as well, right? But if we want to take to the next step, this is where the prompt engineering, right, become important, right? Bring your own data, right? For example, just now I show you that how do I connect to Bing News so that I can get the latest information, right? How do I evaluate the accuracy of my GenAI application, right? So these are the so-called additional complexity that we will need to think about, right? Now, if I take even one step further, right? If we think about the enterprise setup, the authentication, the security, versioning, CI/CD, human in the loop, to continuous improvement, keep track of the chat history, making sure that you collect user feedback, etc. Those are the common so-called application considerations that we need to factor in, right? It's not that GenAI application remove that, right? We are still having all these consideration to make sure that our GenAI application, right, able to serve its own purpose over here, right? So this is where, just like you mentioned about DevOps or ML Ops, right? You might want to, there is a new term, in the blog now, it's called LLM Ops, right? So in a nutshell, right, this is how a life cycle of a large language model application, right? We start from the left-hand side. There's a so-called a challenge, or there is a business need. So this is where we find the right model, we form out our hypothesis, we try our prompt, right? As you can see in the Azure OpenAI Studio, right? We put in our prompt, it works, right? Now, if we take one step further, this is where we will then bring in the prompt engineering. We want to fine tune it. We want to augment, the GenAI with my own data. We want to think about doing some evaluation or doing some exception handling, right? Now, moving one step ahead, this is where, when we move into the production readiness, we will then think about how does the UI looks like? Is it a chat? Is it a web UI, right? How do we do for example, a blue-green deployment? How do we monitor our applications, etc.? Or even, do we need to do our so-called content filtering, right? What if user try to speak something funny into the large language model itself over there? All right. So you can see that that's how you see that the life cycle of the LLM application become more and more complex over here, right? So that's where LLM, right, is here trying to solve these so-called challenges over here, right? Now, perhaps I'm mindful of the time, right? Perhaps I can give you a quick look on the LLM ops, right? How you can see that.
Yeah, sure. It's
I'm
very
going to
interesting so far. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to switch screen again to my VS Code. So for those developer, I hope that's something that will be familiar to you. Alrighty. So I'm back into my VS Code over here. So this is where I want to show, first thing first, I want to show there is a so-called extension on the prompt flow over here. So, whatever that I built on the portal just now, you will be able to document that as a code, right? So you will see that over here, I have like all the different so-called flows over here. Probably I just want to, use this one example, right? Just like I spoke about, the math, the math assistance, right? I'll just use that as example, right? So over here in VS Code, I have the similar, experience on creating my flow over here. The only difference here is that all these things will get captured as a file over here. So you will see that I have my YAML files are over here that actually captured, my flow, right? And I would also have my evaluation of flow over here. So, the standard flow and the evaluation flow. So I've built a prompt flow. I will then want to have another so-called prompt flow that actually help me to evaluate whether, this so-called this code that I created, is it, working or not, right? If I relate back to the so-called CI/CD concept in a DevOps, this is a little bit like your, a unit test or integration test, right? To evaluate, hey, whatever that you created over here, right? Is this still working or not, right? So this is where, I'm not going to show all these things, right? There is a template which I will point you to download all these things, right? So I will then be able to so-called either run locally or I check in, into the GitHub over here. So if I switch screen to my GitHub again, right, I'm switching the screen to GitHub. Basically, this is the one that that I have locally. So if I move over to the action, so you can imagine that I can build all my so-called prompt flow. I can do whatever refinement and do my evaluation, and then I can check in the new feature or the new prompt flow, right, into the branch itself, and then I can then be able to run the so-called GitHub action in this case, right, to automate all these things, including doing the evaluation as well as exposing or rather deploying my application into a real-time endpoint over here, right? You might be seeing there's some error over here because I'm actually adding some more features inside here. All right. Now I hope that gives you a quick glance of how the LLMOps works, and definitely you will be able to get the template from the description.
Oh wow, it's very insightful right here. So I just learned that building a generative AI app is not just about the prompt. All the time I thought it's just about the prompt, like having a good prompt right there, right? So yeah, just one last question. How do I handle users who try to trick the AI to speak certain bad words? All right, I hope you know what is the bad word, right? Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, I mean, this is a very common common questions where when ChatGPT get launched, everyone try to trick a ChatGPT to speak some funny thing. So this is where the responsible AI component come into a picture, right? Definitely, from a Microsoft standpoint, we do acknowledge that this is a very strong ask for a lot of our customers. We want to make sure that there is a system that we can monitor both the AI and the human. So that's where this service called Azure AI Content Safety will come into picture. So basically, this is how it looks like. It gives you a dashboard. It gives you a gatekeeper. So if you look into the screenshot on the right-hand side over here, you'll be able to filter the content that's being generated by AI. You can set a release gate on the 4 different categories. Is there any violence word mentioned? Is there any self-harm word mentioned? Sexual and hate, etc. So based on your application, this is where you can then decide, the comfort level of your application, and based on that inferences, you then either reply or scold the customer, right? The user itself, right? So that's where the content safety become very important, right? So I really urge that for those who are thinking about building Gen AI application, right? It is important, not in day 2 or in a production, but you should factor this in since the day 1 when you're designing the application, right? So I'm just quoting this quote from our CEO where, it's not how fast that, that you can generate or, release your application, release your generative AI application, but also release in a manner of, safety and responsibility. Right. So I hope that gave you a quick glance. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely this is I would say we got to be responsible in whatever that we are doing, especially in this AI space. So I was thinking to use the prompt flow method earlier on and write my own prompts, but look like I can just use the API directly. So just the last question. Okay, I know I asked the last question, but this time it's for our audience right here. So where can our audience get more details on all these resources that you have just shown, right? Like all Azure AI Studios, the prompt flow, and all these LLMOps, right? Yeah. So where can we learn more?
Yeah, so whatever that I described, in fact, there is a bite-sized learning modules that you can get. So I put up the link as well as a QR code over here. So if you're interested, you can use your phone, scan the QR code or take a screenshot. Or if let's say you don't have additional device with you, all these link will be available in the description down here, in the YouTube. All right, so I hope you guys have learned something today. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Sound like I have a plan this weekend, right, for my pet project. Yeah, thank you, Marcus. Right. So right now, yeah, I do get quite a few interesting questions from the audience right here. So are you ready to answer some of that? I think we still have some
Bring
time.
it on.
All right. So the first question is from Irate, right? So it's working on the government system. I'm thinking AI for traffic management automation instead of assisting computer vision concept, like what you mentioned, right? Counting. So instead of using computer vision. So do you think this is practical?
Now that is a very interesting questions over there. Well, just now you see that I use GPT-4 to analyze the images and all these things, right? Now there are a distinguish between using a general computer vision model, which is what GPT-4V does, versus a specialized computer vision model, right? Depending on the use cases. For example, I mean, looking at this scenario where I have a traffic management automation, right? Likely we are looking at, for example, look at the traffics, right? Maybe we want to do a traffic count. We want to look at the traffic color state, the traffic light status, etc. Right? This kind of scenario might be, I would say, static in the sense that we only do these two things. I only need to do car counting and look at the traffic status over here. In this case, we might want to go into a specialized computer vision model which only do these two things. In this case, I can making sure that the inferencing time, all these things will be much faster because the AI model is dedicated on doing this kind of things, right? So that would be my thoughts, right? However, if let's say we are looking at another scenario where sometimes the traffic situation is, or rather the road condition is unexpected. You may expect one random guy jaywalking the road or all these things. You might expect someone cycling or all these things, where this is where the specialized computer vision model may fail to do so. Otherwise, you need to keep training that, right? So in this case, using the GPT-4V might be a practical option because in this case, it can understand the real world and based on the real world, provide the necessary so-called recommendation back to the traffic management or automation. So I would say, double click on the use cases, then we can then decide, whether we want to go for a generalized one or the, specialized one, computer vision model.
Yeah, I think that's a great explanation right there. So thank you for the answers. So right now I have the second questions from I think this Rap there, right? So the Copilot that you have just created, right, is accessible via endpoint using the GPT-3. So question, will we still be charged per token if we consume endpoint via this Copilot? Because it's still using the deployment that you deploy on the GPT-35 Turbo. So will that still be any charges for the token?
Yes. So what I showed just now in the portal is more like tools for you to create an application, right? All the so-called consumption on GPT, all these things is still charged by token. So definitely, it will still be chargeable. In fact, as part of your development, right, you will be able to see how much each of these module, consume the number of a token so that you can fine tune or optimize it as well. So definitely, don't get too excited, right? Do consider, the token length as well so that it doesn't give you a surprise when you review the bill.
Yeah, so I agree. So it's still using the same the backend, right? The model
Yep.
right there. Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you for the answers. So one final questions, right, from the audience. All right. So it seems like the audience is super excited with the whatever that we presented. So there's a questions from Bennett. All right. So where should I start if I want to teach my students regarding Gen AI? So what will be your suggestion? Right. I know you have shared some of the resources. Is that enough or what else? Right.
I think the first resources the first QR code that I share just now, I think is a good starting point because it's a short bites article, a short article as well as some of the short video. So I think for students who are very busy with their studies, perhaps that would be a good starting point. Perhaps when they are on their way to school or after their school, they can just like spend 5-10 minutes to actually get themselves familiar with that, right? So that would be one way from there. Of course, the second way, which this is where I believe strongly, right? You learn by doing. So perhaps having a sandbox environment or a lab, for students to come in, unleash their creativity, to use a Gen AI, right? Perhaps I don't know, maybe we can have a art lesson, but we instead of draw physically, we can ask the student to craft out a prompt to generate an art, right? So that would be a good way to also get the students familiarized with Gen AI as well.
Yeah, so thank you for sharing. So definitely just to highlight that those resources that Marcus has mentioned is also in the description of the video, right? So to get it from there, right there. Okay, so I think that should be all from the audience. I don't see any more questions. So let's invite our host, Sujan back, all right? So to
Hello.
continue on right here. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Marcus and Vincent. Very impressed with what you have shared today. And I love the engagement, from our audience, from the Philippines all the way to Norway. So yeah, to you that's watching this session today, if you have actually found this session helpful, please take time to hit on the like and subscribe button. That would help validate us very much. Or click on the notify button. Yeah. So if you've enjoyed today's session, please join us for the next one. So you can see, the image there. The link is aka.ms Startup AI School. We have specially curated this series, and the next one will be about creating an app in a low-code AI Copilot style. So that means minimal hand coding, especially essentially doing more with less. So I think that's us again showing how AI in many different ways can really make your life easier. So we also added one more show after this series. It will be on how you can use AI to better analyze your data. So yeah, switching gears a little, we'll talk about Founders Hub. So you probably know our mission at Microsoft is to empower every human and organization to achieve more. So this includes startups as well. So we want to enable founders to be able to solve world problems and build a better future. So if you have plans to create a product centering around AI or accelerate your AI innovation, so this is it for you, the Microsoft for Startups Founders Hub. So it is actually a very dynamic platform and ecosystem supporting founders like you from ideate stage to development, grow, and scale stages. So we're talking about free open AI Azure credits, about 150 Azure credits, and a lot of access to like development tools, support from our experts, etc. And you even have access to third-party tools like Sales Navigator, Recruiter, Business Premium, etc. So yeah, so check it out. Lots of good stuff there. Finally, we have also included a survey to today's session. So if you have time to fill that up, it will be greatly appreciated. You can also access this on demand on our YouTube channel right after today's live stream. So yeah, so finally, thank you so much, our dear speakers, for taking time, and I look forward to having you on our series sometime again. So yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in on a Friday. It's raining here in Singapore. I hope it's better across the rest of the world. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you in our next session. Yeah, cheers, bye.
Bye bye.
Thanks, everyone.